Hi, good evening to all of you. Welcome to TimesPro's 99th Leadership Risk Lecture on a very interesting topic. I'm sure most of you must have had your own thoughts on what can possibly be entailing in this session. But we couldn't have a better person than Rohit. And in fact, if you have seen his LinkedIn post, I think this is something that he has been very vocal and something very passionate about. Very few CEOs that you came across, right? And before I hand over the platform to him, let me have the pleasure of introducing him. He is currently the CEO of Birla Copper, which is of Hindalco Industries Ltd. Obviously, he didn't come this far without having his very interesting pedigree and also the corporate background. And after having completed his BE honors in electrical and electronics from BITS Pilani, he did his PGDM, that is MBA from Ahmedabad. And then immediately after his stint at Ahmedabad, he joined the Marquis McKinsey and Co. for 10 years and 2 months as associate principal. After that, he joined Aditya Birla Group as joint president and principal executive assistant to chairman for where he was for 4 years and 9 months. After that, again with the same group, he became the president and CEO of Aditya Birla Insulators. And after which he has become the chief executive officer of Aditya Birla Power Composites Limited, where he was there for 1 year and 3 months. And then he also currently happens to be the director at Fertilizer Association of India, and where he has been serving in this capacity since June 2021. And since May 2021 and till now, and of course for many more years, he is the chief executive officer of corporate business, that is of Hindalco Industries Limited. And he's also on the president of the board of directors at Indian Electrical and Electronics Manufacturer Association. He was the president of the board of directors, like I said, and he was a director also, and he was the immediate past president from and between October 2023 and till now. And he's going to talk to us on very interesting topic, like I said, on chief executive officer to chief empathy officer. I'm sure each one of us will have a lot of actionable insights. It's a people might say it's a soft skill, but trust me, in this world currently and in the last few years, it has become one of the most sought after hard skills. So much so that there are courses structured around only on this topic. So that is the importance of it, and we couldn't have better person than Rohit. Welcome, Rohit, and we're going to, and I'm sure have great insights, actionable insight from you. Over to you, Rohit.
Thank you so much, Nagendra, and a pleasure being here. It's a it's a topic which, as you mentioned, I've been quite passionate about. Something I've been speaking on and writing about for the last few years, and glad to see this come into the main discourse in colleges and in panels like these. So I'm happy to be here, and thanks for the platform to share my thoughts with your students and participants of this program. Uh, so, let me. Um, uh, I have a few slides, so I'll share them shortly. But I thought, let me give you a sense of, or try and address four questions for you. I think first, why is it relevant, and why are we talking about this? Second, what is it really about, or what does it mean? Third, how do you work on this as a CEO or as a leader? I think CEO is a generic term for a leader here. But how, as a leader, do you work on these, and what are the components of what you need to do? And finally, how does it help you, or what is in it for me, as you would, typically we would talk about. So I think those are the four things that I'll try and address. Post which I think we'll have enough time for Q&A. Look forward to some good questions, which I'll be happy to answer. Uh, I guess all of you can see my screen. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Great. So,
Yes.
let me just start with, what. One second. Yeah. So, you the leadership and the current HR practices, as they are known, or organization practices, are things that have been derived from over the last several decades, uh, gaining a lot from how the U.S. military used to start thinking. Those were the first few management courses that came about, right? And a lot of this, as the topic says, are about people as resources, right? So that's why this famous term human resources, where you treat people as resources, you train them to do a certain set of tasks. That's how Ford and other companies started several almost a century ago. And that is how things have evolved over the years, right? People have worked around it to make people more efficient and effective. But by and large, human resources and your teams around IR, which is industry relationships, employee relationships, and HR. But all of them talk about people as resources, where your basic hypothesis is people are coming here to earn a livelihood, and you as an organization and you as a leader need to uh, you know make them or give them the right kind of work and make them work, right? And that's the primarily the basis of how you think about this. However, I think in today's world, and if you look at the last decade or so, including in India, increasingly, I don't think people are resources, but I think they are resourceful. And what people and employees are looking for are a platform from where they can create an impact, right? Where they can make a difference. And the moment you change this thinking from resources to people as resourceful, how you look at them, how you engage with them needs to change, right? And that I think is the biggest shift mindset wise that most leaders need to make. But I think it's still very early days for many in how they think about this, right? People are still, as leaders across sectors, across countries, looking at people where they're trying to tell them how to do their work, organizing them in a certain way. If you look at our education system, by the way, it's by and large been designed to make you learn and prepare you as a employee for an organization, right? Historically, before independence, it was tailored towards creating a workforce for the British. I think post independence, we have created uh, and tailored the system a little bit, but it's still geared towards creating ready employment and employees for organizations. But I think increasingly, especially in the last 3 to 4 years, you have seeing a lot more people who are saying, "Look, I'm not just a normal employee. I would like to contribute much more than doing a few set of tasks." And I think that to me is the real difference that we need to prepare for. So I think that's point one on why I think this is an important topic. Right now, what does it mean? I think historically, hence, if you look at organization, you think of organization as the CEO on the top of the leadership or organization, and you have a bunch of people structured in different layers where people are supposed to work. And essentially, employees, a lot of them bring their bodies or arms and legs to work, right? That is how organizations used to work. And until about 10, 15 years ago, most of the work was very manual in many of the industries, right? You would do things. Yes, there were machines, but large part of the work was still manual, and hence the organization structure looked like this. And that's how almost everyone and all organization thinking uh, work to say, how do I get the maximum out of this structure that we have as an organization, right? However, I think today, if you look at it, and I think the real delta that you as a leader can bring in is thinking of the organization flipped around, right? Which is, you want employees to not just bring their bodies to work, but you want them to bring their mind and heart to work, right? Which is, you want them to be thinking. You want, the word today used in many organizations is, you want entrepreneurs in organizations. And second, you want people who are passionate about what they do, right? So they bring their heart to the job too. So you're not just getting the bodies or arms and legs, but you're also getting the mind and heart of people to work. And if in this construct, the role of the leader is actually at the bottom of the pyramid, where you are sort of pretty much there to support and uh, provide that anchor for everyone, uh, so that they can perform and do or they can perform to their potential, sometimes even as a team above their potential. as an organization, right? And I think that is where the role from a chief executive to a chief empathy officer comes in. And I think that's the uh, at least a construct with which uh, I think the good leaders of today and the future will succeed if they are able to do or work in this manner. By the way, as Dr. Nagendra was sharing, I been in operating roles only for the last 6 7 years, and one of my first few roles, or the first role that I took in operating role was as CEO of the insulator business of the group, which was, it's the largest insulator player in India, top four globally. And when I took on that role, it's a very manual uh, manufacturing setup, right? We used to make a large part of our portfolio was making porcelain insulators, which was done manually. Every insulator was touched by 30, 40 people before it was ready to be shipped to a customer. And we had hence a lot of people working at our plants, a lot of unions at to both our plants. And for me, that was the first experience. And um, I think to me, I took it on because I thought it's a great experience to learn from. And this was one concept which I tried to follow. I would admit it was not thought in this way as I'm portraying it to you. Uh, but I thought, my role is here not to tell them what to do. I'm new to the industry. I don't know how to make an insulator. Uh, these people who are on the ground, they know how to make an insulator. So my role is to actually see that they can uh, deliver to their potential. And I create an environment where I'm helping them deliver to their potential, right? And that is how I approached. And to my surprise, even though the industry was going through a very tough time, uh, the long-term union settlements that we did in those 5 years were done very smoothly, right? And we got the support of the entire unions and the workforce in whatever we were trying to do to try and come out of the tough times the business was going through. And I think that was to me a big insight that, it's not just about your employees or management teams that you talk about, but this notion of working with people to help them do their best is something that works very well, even with the frontline unionized labor. That often in many of our discourses is sort of little, spoken down about, not saying they are, they don't want to work, they're not committed. But I think if you create the right environment, this approach actually works right down to the front line of people who do their work. And I think the big delta here was you need to, as a leader, get away from expecting people to be told what exactly to be done and instead focus on hearing them, listening to them, and then giving them guidance and direction. So, as a CEO, your role remains, the accountability remains on you, but and you still take the decisions, but you do those after listening to others. You build on the minds and thoughts of all your organization members, and then you decide what is best to be done, right? And that I think is a big difference in terms of how you operate or structure this notion of being a CEO. So, having said these two things, that yes, it is something that is an important element in the organization thinking of today and what's going to come, that you need to think about the role in a different way and pretty much invert the pyramid in your mind of how you work. You support your teams. I crystallize this, and normally when I talk about this, I talk about three aspects of the role of the chief empathy officer, right? And to me, these are things which is the primary role of the CEO in today's world, apart from the mandate of thinking about the vision and thinking about the strategy for where you want to take the business. So those roles remain, but this element or these three elements are in the context of your day-to-day working and how you organize your teams for the regular deliverables of the business, right? And there, I think there are three elements which I think are important. First is engagement. Are you engaged and are you talking to all the different uh, people in your organization across the levels? I think this is something which is very, very critical. Unless you as a leader have the pulse of the organization, you will not be able to take effective decisions. And I've seen quite a few people who may be great strategists. I come from a consulting background, and we prided ourselves in good thinking and smart thinking. But I think that is useful only if you know and you have the pulse on the ground, right? Otherwise, all your good strategies can sound very good on paper, but you will get them wrong when you execute them. So I think engagement is the first important element of being a chief empathy officer. You need to be walking around the plant or their teams or locations. You need to be listening to your people across different seniorities, different functions, so that you get you get to hear what's on their mind, get to hear their thoughts. Um, I remember hearing one small, I wouldn't say small, mid-sized entrepreneur, who was giving a talk a few years ago, and I loved, he was talking Gujarati. He was a Gujarati diamond, you know, entrepreneur, and he is known in Gujarat for every year at his, at the annual compensation time, distributing to his good employees, and not just a few select, but a very large bunch of his employees, sometimes cars, sometimes houses. And it was always spoken about, written about in the media. And I got a chance to listen to him in one of the talks, and he was talking about, uh, what he was saying. And I think one thing struck me, which was very powerful. He said, look, for me, while people may think I'm giving this and I'm overspending on my employees, the way I think about this is, today, if only I am thinking about the betterment of the business, or my sons are thinking about the business, we are two or three people thinking about the business. But if 34 of my 3 4,000 people who I employ, they start thinking about the betterment of the business, then you can imagine the power, the horsepower we are putting behind the business and ideas. So I think that, to me, is a very powerful notion. Can you get your larger organization and your people start thinking about what value they can add, how they can contribute to the business? And I think that it's not easy, because when you hear a lot of views, sometimes they're contradictory, sometimes they are not fact based, sometimes they are difficult to implement, and you as a leader need to figure out and develop a mechanism to be able to filter those out into things that really matter. But I think you can't get away from engaging with the teams and hearing them out. So that's, I think, point number one. The point number two is enablement. And this is about how do you develop your team members, right? How do you build the skills and capabilities of your team members? Uh, yes, they may have the right uh, uh, thinking, but can you create organization structures within which enables people to try their ideas in an efficient way and see if it works? For example, we are at Hindalco and in the copper business, we're trying to create internal entrepreneurs, where we just launched innovation championship, where we formed cross-functional teams, got them to think about some business challenges or ideas that they had, and come back with solutions that they think they can implement and that can help the business. And now we're putting in a system to encourage some of these ideas in those same cross-functional teams to be implemented. Not something new. I think companies like 3M and others have done this over the year, over several decades now. But I think doing it at scale is where the real challenge is. So enablement is about two things. One is, can you build the capability of different people in the organization in a structured and efficient manner. And second is, can you create organization structures around which people can uh, connect to deliver something beyond their current existing functional roles, right? Because as a CEO, you have access to everyone. You can direct everyone, and hence a lot of the historical ownership of doing something came to you. But if you can create a structure where different people and different functions can collaborate in an efficient manner, then you can see that benefit of uh, thinking getting translated into impact for the business. So I think that's the second element of being an empathetic officer. The third element is empowerment, and I think this is probably the crux of the crux of being the CEO, right? Where can you really and truly empower your teams to do things, right? A lot of people say, "Oh, yeah, I delegate a lot," but delegation is not empowerment. Uh, you know, the responsibility remains with you. You, as a CEO, are always responsible for the overall delivery of whatever happens in the organization. But can you give the authority to people? And can you, after having done engagement and enabled properly, create an environment by which people can actually or can succeed in the delegation that you have done? So the mindset and empowerment has to be that you are letting someone else take the calls, but you're helping them, guiding them in how they decide, what logic to use. So, for example, at Birla Copper, we launched an effort called Empowerment by Design, right? Where we said, let us, each of us, so me, then my DRs, and then their DRs, they started working on, can they, we sat on key decisions that we were taking with our teams and spent time trying to tell them, how did I think about that decision? What metrics did I use? What logic did I use? And help ensure that my thinking is transparent to my team. And I realized that after doing this 2 3 times, the next time the team actually could think on all the dimensions that I could think of, plus a few more that they had more access to, and then decide how to go about it, right? So I think that's part one of empowerment, that can you actually coach and help your teams understand how to decide and not just the decision that typically you would have given earlier. The second element around this empowerment is, things will go wrong. As a leader, you have to be comfortable with things going wrong. There will be some decisions which will not play out the way you thought. And those are the real testing moments for how you or how effective and empowering leader you are. Uh, so if you lose your cool, you start suddenly saying, "Oh, I told you so." Why did you do this? You will not get empowerment, right? People will very quickly get back into their mode of saying, why don't you uh, take the decision, and people will very quickly get back to upward delegating, right? Though you may have delegated it down, but they will very quickly start upward delegating if they realize that if something goes wrong, you will get onto them. And that's a very difficult balance for leaders to handle. You can't uh, you know unless you feel secure yourself about your career or about where you are in your career, you will not be able to get that balance right of trying to take the beating for a decision gone wrong by one of your teammates. Very easy to say, "Oh, I would have done this differently, but that guy, he just made a mistake," and you will push the blame down, which is the wrong thing to do if you really want empowerment to succeed. I think, so for example, if someone has taken a wrong decision, instead of saying that person has done this wrong, you should say, maybe, I didn't explain properly on what the expectations were or what some of the governing rules were that should have been followed, and I'll try in doing that next time to ensure that person takes a better decision going forward, right? So I think empowering in the right way is the third element of being an empathetic officer. Um, you know, and this is something which is a philosophical uh, uh, mindset that that people are in. On, do you believe your team is will work only if you give them and put them under pressure, right? I think a lot of managers today still operate with the mindset that the teams can only work if you put them under a lot of pressure. And I have believed that I think that's the wrong way to think about it, because in pressure and under pressure, most people will end up making more mistakes than doing things right, right? And actually, if you can get them to feel passionately about something, I think they will always surprise you with fantastic outcomes. And each time I have tried this with different teams where instead of putting pressure or putting a stretch target on them, I let them think about a target. Okay, say, what do you think you can do in a good, positive environment? The teams will surprise you by actually maybe even surpassing what you had in mind in terms of what they can deliver. And I think that's a very, very important mindset shift to do. None of this works if your basic hypothesis remains that the teams are a bit lazy, they are wasting their time, and only by putting pressure can it work, right? That I think is days of the old, which are probably gone in this today's mindset where people are not thinking of themselves as resources. That style will just not work, right? There are enough options for people to leave if they feel the boss is not good or is just putting undue pressure. Yeah, you may succeed for a couple of years if the market situation is bad when jobs are not there, but very quickly you will find people, leaving if you're not a good leader, right? So a lot of time in most of our organization, uh, we spend a lot of time trying to teach people uh, uh, on how to be effective managers and get uh, the right coaching done for their teams and their members. So I think those are the three elements of a chief empathy officer role: engage with your team, spend time in the front line, listen to different people, enable them by building their capability, and also organization structures by which they can do more and engage and work collectively through matrix organizations. And third, empower them in the true spirit where the responsibility remain yours, but you give them the authority and the way of thinking to take decisions for the organization, right? So once you've done this, why as a apart from the reasons of how people are, what is in it for you as a CEO if you are able to do this, right? So I think this is a very apart from being a altruistic approach, I think this is also something which is a there is a good selfish motive in this for anyone to focus on this. And I think the elements, or why I call it selfish, is one: if you're able to do this well, it gives you a lot of time to focus on the bigger strategic initiatives that you as a CEO need to spend time on. I find a lot of CEOs stuck in trying to just do the routine, right? And if you're doing the routine, you will miss the big picture. You will probably miss some of the big trends that are happening. And hence, in a couple of years, you will be taken by surprise by what's hit you as an industry. So I think unless you are able to do this and empower your teams, engage the teams, and enable the teams to be able to deliver more than their regular roles, you will not have the time to drive and think about the strategic initiatives. So I think that's motive number one of why you should do this, right? And I think, remember, you can always look like a hero when you're solving a problem which is here and now, right? And that's what many leaders end up doing, saying, "Oh, I solved this problem. I This was a crisis, and I handled it so well." But your role as a CEO is not to handle just crises. Yes, they will come and you have to play a role, but your role is to ensure that crises don't happen, or even when they happen, the team is not in panic looking at it as a crisis, right? And the team is in a mode that, yeah, we'll handle this. Why don't you focus still on the bigger things that we need to do as a business? The second element, I think, if you do this right, you get a good work-life balance, because you will have more time. You'll have a lot more, time to just sit back and think, and you can strike the right work-life balance. And this is very important, right? I think you in your mind have to be clear. Are you trying to take your subordinate's role, or are you trying to take your boss's role? Right? I think that's the difference that you need to make and on how you work. Uh, if you try and take your subordinate's role, you will never be able to step back and think what's happening in the big picture, right? And you will never have time at your hand. But if you're trying to step back and try and think about it from your boss's perspective, you will actually have a lot better visibility on what you're doing and be away from the routine to have a better work-life balance, which is critical, I think, for all of us. And I think the third one is better health, because I think if you are able to uh, get rid of being embroiled in the routine, I think you will have a lot less stress. You will be a lot better prepared where when things are hitting your business from different perspectives, and hence better uh, or lower stress will lead to better health, which will finally loop back into you being a good leader and being a better leader. So I think, to me, those are the three elements. So I think this is not just about doing something right for the organization, but I think this is something which helps you individually to also benefit, drive for bigger impact in the organization, create a better work-life balance so that you have sort of, you're happier and more joyful than a taskmaster as a boss. And third, that you yourself can grow and build your skills going forward, right? Don't think as being a CEO you have got everything or you've learned everything. There is still a lots more to learn, and this approach can help you learn a lot more and build yourself further for even bigger roles in the organization or in the industry associations or a larger platform that you want to be involved with. So I think those were the sort of broad things that I thought I'll share with you. I'll pause this here and stop the share. Like I said, that there's more just to anchor the discussion. Happy to take on discussions and questions that you have and answer some of them to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Rohit. I think we have quite a few questions. Let me start the first one. Is it okay with you?
Yeah, yeah, perfect.
Yeah, this is from Anil. His question is, Hi, Anil. I am Anil Kori. How to keep a balance while driving results when you push your team to the limits out of a comfort zone and maintain empathy? Thank you, Anil.
No, so I think a fantastic question, and I think that's the that's a real challenge in this job, right? I think, look, you cannot focus on trying to do everything yourself. If you try to do everything yourself, um, you will never have time for everything. So you have to believe that you have people who are capable of doing things on their own. And if you once you know that your people are capable, you have to gauge for each of the persons on what their weaknesses is. So let's say if you find someone who is not great at finance, right, and some job requires a knowledge of finance, can you bring in someone with the financial knowledge to work with that person, right? Because then he or she will have the support of the knowledge that you think will be important for the decision making. Because by just pushing, you will not get the results. I think you have to get comfortable with the fact that pushing will not give you the result, right? Because yeah, in the short term, maybe one or task you will do it, but that is happening because you are putting in the effort. But that's not where you'll create the big impact. So you have to start getting comfortable with saying, look, I am okay not being in the pit all the time, Yes, in a crisis or something when things really go wrong, I'm there with the team, but I'm not pushing them to do it. I'm helping them solve it. And I think that's I don't think there's an easy answer to this. You have to first get comfortable with your own role. So what I find very useful in this normally is, you know, I do this. I always think of keeping my resignation in my pocket to say, look, if things really go bad, I'll take the fall for it. I'll find something else. And that's a very empowering thought, right? Because then you are not trying to protect your job. And the moment you stop doing that, your mindset can change. Many people actually think of it, if it goes wrong, my job is on the line. So even before trying to solve the problem, they try to push their teams as much as they can to work at a problem, and that is what breaks many teams in the as they go about it.
Thank you. This is a question from Mr. Sudipta Kumar. His question is, what behaviors are critical for displaying empathy in leaders? Thank you, Sudipta.
So I think empathy first is, you should be approachable, right? For example, if I look at Hindalco, probably I was also taken aback initially where my boss Satish, who's the MD of Hindalco, in his office where he works every day, there is no door. There's just half a wall, right? There's not even a glass. So it's not a door which is kept open. There is no door, right? And anyone going around outside the office can see him, can hear him, and listen to him and what he's doing, which is, I think, a very, very important element. People should feel and you should be approachable to your teams. And that's a first part of being empathetic. Second is, you have to have time to listen to people. Unless you create time for yourself to be able to listen to people, you cannot be empathetic, right? So when someone comes to you, you should not be, okay, tell me what you're doing, and you're on the phone or on the computer trying to type something out or send something showing that you're important. That will never make you empathetic, right? You have to be mentally there when someone comes to you and listen to them. You may not solve every problem, but you should at least you have it in you to be able to listen to all of them, right? To the best extent. I think the third is, uh, do people genuinely believe and do you act in a way where you are actually helping others succeed and others get true credit for what they're doing, right? Or are you the kind of a boss who's trying to take credit for everything? All the good is mine, all the bad is someone made a mistake, right? You have to be able to flip it around for the team to earn the trust on you, that when things go wrong you will take the hit. When things go right, you will give them the credit, right? For whatever they have done. So I think that those are three elements which I think is important. And by the way, look, all this, we have complicated it a little bit of thinking of it as a work issue. But I think all these skills are as relevant in the home construct or in a friend construct, right? Think of being empathetic to your family or friends. What would you do? Not very different from what is required at work, because finally they are also humans, right? They are working with similar things. Yes, the context in which you are interacting is different, but finally it's a human to human interaction.
This is a question from Mr. Umakant Mohanty. His question is, how we manage the complaints in the time-bound period without pressure to team. And one more thing, employees are now moving to avoid or skip to do and staying in comfort zone, taking the help of unions. How do you handle such issues? Thank you, Umakanta.
No, so look, like I said, my first role was in a operating role was in a business which was full of unions. I had 6 unions in Kolkata, right? And you can imagine that's as intense as it gets. And to my surprise, I think if they understand what you're trying to do, yes, there will always be a few elements who are notorious and who will create problems. But I think if you are there on the ground, people are listening to you, you're solving their problems, you're actually working genuinely to help them. People understand and they see it. I think that to me is the most powerful thing. So again, I think the question has a hidden assumption, right? The assumption is that the people are lazy and they don't want to work, right? If that is the case, yes, then there is no other way but to put pressure. But if your hidden assumption is people are keen to do work if you recognize them, right? If you give them that satisfaction of making. So, for example, for workers there, we said, okay, we ran a 5S and housekeeping competition on the plant, and then we got their families to come and see. The winners, their families to come and see how good they have done their area, and the pride in them when they showed it to their wives or children. What they've done in the plant was fantastic, right? So there are ways to kindle the pride in people if you know what drives them.
Great. This is a question from Vikas Maurya. His question is current line bootstrapping a startup that is positioned towards blue collar workers. So
Yes.
my most of my time is spent dealing with them. Would like to have crucial things or some rules to remember while working with white collar versus blue collar with regards to the three elements. The engagement,
Yeah.
enablement, and empowerment.
So look, I think finally, again, I would say they're humans. They think similar, but I think the needs are a little different. Blue collar today is still trying to address some of the basic concerns around livelihood, around income, around health security, and things like that. So yes, their approach may be a little different, but I think you have to still listen to them. You have to figure out how you can allay some of the concerns or uncertainties that they are facing in the way you run the organization. I think the blue collar workers typically can be a lot more loyal if given the right respect and given the right positions, right? And you build the capability, you develop them. So, for example, let's say in a copper plant today, for us, 60% of the workforce is blue collar, right? Or what we call blue collar. But some of the blue collars know the plant better than most of my managers, right? And we're training them, we're recognizing them a lot more. In our awards, we recently did our awards for the copper business, and we didn't make a differentiation between blue collar and white collar in the awards, right? We said, look, teams can have both. In fact, teams need to have both types of people, and we'll recognize all of them together on one platform. And I think that made a big difference. I think remember, as in most organizations, your blue collar will form the backbone of who ends up doing the work. Your white collar is only helping on some of the strategic elements or organizing elements, but work is finally being done by the blue collar, so they better do their job well. Then the white collars can get the most out of it.
This is a question from Mr. Manish Agarwal, Rohit. His question is how to take role of your boss if he doesn't have that perspective of seeing things towards employees. Thank you, Manish.
No, so if your boss is a bit of a nutcase, don't take on his role, right? But I'm saying, think of, let's say, for example, today I am, CEO of the copper business. When I think about copper, I don't think about what I will do as what I need to do as CEO of copper. I think of it, what do I need to do in this business if I was the MD of Hindalco, or if I was Mr. Birla thinking about copper as a business, right? That in your mind, you can always play that role. You don't need to be given that role, right? So I'm saying when I say play the role of the boss is take yourself one level above, right? Go a few steps above and say, okay, if I look at it from this perspective, how do I see the business, right? So, for example, one of the key things is copper is not a listed business for us as Hindalco. It's part of Hindalco overall as a listed company. So, what are investors talking about when they talk to Satish on Hindalco, right? What are they asking about copper? I need to start thinking about that. Only then I can start making a difference on some of those elements, right? So, I think to me, if your boss, it's not about saying take the boss's role, but it's about whatever is the role which is next or maybe one or two levels above, can you see what is important and relevant from that perspective for your business, right? And I think that you can only do, by the way, if you have time at yourself. If you're working 10, 12, 14 hours a day, you will never have time to think of it from your boss's perspective.
This is a question from Miss Neha Kullar. Her question is: it becomes a huge challenge for people who are highly self-dependent to completely let go of the work. So in the
Yes.
process, they end up experiencing anxiety and not showing trust in their
Yes.
subordinates,
Yes.
despite having no trust issues.
Yes.
what are the first two steps to change this attribute? Thank you, Neha.
Yes. So, I think this is a very genuine issue. And I remember in my consulting days, I was talking to, we're trying to develop a training program for operators and how to do things well. And, we reached out to one of the most experienced operator and said, look, why don't you, let's make a video of how you do this job so that we can teach others on that. And, his reaction was, sir, this is, this is why I have importance in this organization. If I teach this what I do to all the youngsters, right, who are coming in, then they will not look at me, right? They will not see my importance or relevance, and I will lose my relevance or I will lose my job, right? And that was the mindset, right? So I think a lot of us go through that. That if I teach someone what I do, then I have nothing else to do. But I think unless you uh, teach others what you're doing today, you will not have time to do something else, right? So a lot of people, one of the things which I always end up saying is, you know, most of us end up trying to fight very hard to make ourselves indispensable in our roles, right? Whereas actually we should be working very hard to make ourselves redundant in our roles to be able to grow, right? Unless you do that, you cannot grow. Your boss will never let you go because you've always, for the last 5 years, if you have said this plant cannot run without my active involvement, why will your boss want you to go? Right? He will say, no, stay there. I'll keep you happy. I will sometimes give you a remuneration. Sometimes I'll give you an award, X, Y, and Z, but keep you where you are because you are critical for me to run this plant. So I think you have to move into the zone where you say, okay, can I uh, uh, do something else and leave a little bit of what you're doing to others to do that, right? So, and that organization culture will take time. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to recognize people who are collaborative, who are sharing, who are empowering. Slowly, after 2-3 cycles, people say, okay, this fellow needs means what he's saying, and then they'll start changing their behavior. It will take time. It won't happen overnight.
Thank you, Rohit. This question from Mr. Bharat Verma, and he's saying this is Ramnath. This is Ramnath. As delegation and unrelieving the pressure shall have the chance to miss the targets, as many of them, many of times, people take it casually. Your review on this, your views on this, please. Thank you, Bharat.
Again, what I would say is your basic assumption there is that your team is not good enough, right? I think if your team is good enough, let them deliver, right? It's like saying the horse is running and I have this, whip in my hand, and the horse will win the race only if I hit the horse with the whip, right? If that's your basic thinking, you'll never, be able to let go of the whip, right? I think maybe the first time the horse may lose, but the second time, if you understand why they lost, you will be able to feed the horse or train the horse in the right way, right? And I think this is how you work with people. If you think your team is bad, and by the way, none of us gets the team of our choice when you get onto a new role, right? Most of the time, you're given a new role. You have a team which is already there, and by the time you actually put in a team which you thought is best for you, you are moving on to another role. So you never have the team of your choice. So learn how to work with people who may not be your best choice. And some of them will be great, some of them may not be as great. Work with them to get the best out of it. That's what leaders are for. If you think leadership is about getting a great team to deliver, you're not mistaken. That's not leadership, right? Anyone can do that. Leadership is about taking an average team and making them win a tournament, right? We all talk about Dhoni as a great leader. What has he done? He's not had stars. He's got average players at times, and he's made them use them in their in the best way to win the maximum number of championships, right? So I think that's what a leader is about, and I think you have to change your mindset first, right? And be willing to take one or two hits early on to be able to change that dynamic of the team. If from day one you start trying to say, I have to win this, I have to win this, right? The team will say, okay, one more selfish boss who is here to get his or her glory.
Thank you, Rohit. This is a question from Mr. Venkat Krishnan. His question is, hi, Rohit. With the recent spate of layoffs in the past 1 year across many companies, Many in mid management or junior staff have been impacted. How do you think the services sector overall should realign itself, given the larger push from government has been on manufacturing in recent times? Kindly advise. Thank you, Venkat.
So I don't think the layoffs has anything to do with the government's focus on manufacturing. In fact, I think as a country, we're still not focusing enough on manufacturing. A lot of the our services still has a lot more attractiveness to both the people wanting to work and the broader environment. I don't think anything to do with the government or this thing. I think for India, we need to make manufacturing exciting and rewarding for people. We must realize, like farming was tough and it's a tough job, manufacturing is a tough job, and we have to make those jobs attractive. We have to make them. We have to pay for some of those as a country better, right? If we are saying, okay, I will import something from China because it is cheaper, you'll never grow as a country, right? Well, how did Japan become what it became? Because without any trade barriers, the people said, if it is Japanese made, even if it is not as good as what came from abroad, I will use it for some time, right? And that's how the Japanese firms became better and better at manufacturing. And I think unless we as a country focus on manufacturing and grow our capability for manufacturing, we are missing a big opportunity as a country. I think second to your point on layoffs, look, I think many of the services, business, and models are learning a little bit from the West of saying, oh, hire, fire, which is, I think, has its advantages. I'm not saying it's something which is bad necessarily. But look, if you are signing up for something like that, you have to be ready for that mindset, right? Manufacturing will typically give you, because it's finally, you can't, you've put up a plant, you've put up a lot of capex, so you need people to run it, and hence hire firing doesn't happen so easily. In services, sometimes depends on the market. So as an individual, what you can do is be ahead of what's happening in your industry, right? If you think things are better, becoming tougher, have you made a case for why the company should keep you, right? Have you shown initiative? Have you shown impact? Or if you think you're not as good as some of the others, have you started looking out a little earlier, right? Because mobility is higher in services industries. But unfortunately, look, when things are bad, in services does take a hit. That's nature of the game in services. That's why you need, as a country, a strong manufacturing to provide a base load of employment for the people.
And this is a question from Mr. Ram Suchit Singh. His question is on not putting the team under pressure. These days, all clients or customers put a lot of time pressure on the company. This
Yes.
creates a lot of pressure on the management to transfer further in order to keep the client's expectations.
Yes.
That's something that I see happening, at least in construction industry. How can it be addressed? Thank you, Rams.
It happens in, I think, all industries. I was a consultant, right, and I know the pressure clients would put on you at times for deliverables. Having now come to the other side where I'm employing consultants, I realized that some of those pressures were just meaningless. You didn't have to do all those things that the client was asking because it was not really value adding for the client. So I think, look, pressures will always be there. Businesses are trying to do things, or get everything out from, when things go wrong, you try and save every penny. You try to get more from the same penny that you have put, and that is nature of business. It will stay. I think you have to start getting comfortable and being able to articulate what you will take and what you will not take. Right? If there are customers who are always like that, you know. Are you moving to customers who are not like that, right? Even if they put a little of, it's very easy to justify, oh, customers are putting pressure, so I'm now putting pressure on the team. No, yes, customer is putting pressure on you, but can you do it differently within your team? Because tell me, which one of us performs best under pressure, right? Pressure works if you're saying the team, person is working only 3 hours. By putting pressure now, I will make him work 8 hours, right? Because the balance 5 hours, otherwise they were just wasting their time. But if that's not the case, by putting more pressure, you are just trying to turn a blind eye to what they're doing, and they will make more mistakes. So I don't think pressure works unless, like you said, you have a very lazy workforce which you are trying to change. But if your workforce is not lazy, then pressure will never work, and you should acknowledge that fact, and then look for different ways of doing or getting things done.
Thank you, Rohit. This is a question from
And
Mr.
sorry, just one other thing. I think to me as a leader, your job is to be able to simplify and prioritize. You have to do the prioritization for your team. If there is more work coming, you have to be able to prioritize and say what they should not be doing, because otherwise they will prioritize on their own. And that may not be the best option. So you have to be able to tell them how to prioritize and say, okay, focus on this, let this be for some time because this is more critical. If you say, oh, do this and then do this on a best effort basis, that doesn't happen, right? They will finally take a call somewhere, or they will be very, very unhappy as employees and will leave at the next best opportunity that they get.
Great. So this is a question from Ms. Sandeep Jaiswal. His question is, what is your suggestion to build a continuous engagement with cross-functional teams? Thank you, Sandeep.
Cross-functional team, yeah. So, look, I think that's a little bit of a challenge, because I think the way we are structured, we create this natural conflict between different functions and different teams. So, I think one is, how do you start encouraging and rewarding people who are actually collaborative, right? So, for example, I was sharing with you earlier, we just did our Aditya Birla Copper Awards. And one of the key things we did there was to 70% of the awards were team awards, right? And the teams were across functions, across hierarchies, for things that we delivered as a company or as a business, and not for a functional excellence in any area. So I think we're trying to encourage uh, collaborativeness, cross-functional teams who work on a problem together, right? So you're trying to push the P&L thinking down as much as you can, right? Historically, it was, your P&L is taken right till the top, and everyone is just doing a functional silo job. Obviously, with that mindset, how will they even know, what is important for someone else? So you have to start breaking that silos down into people who are working as teams versus working as in their functional silos or in their operating silos.
This is a question from Shipal Singh Sisodia. His question is, how to drive empathy in diversified teams from freshers to experienced team members? Thank you, Shipal.
Empathy from freshers.
Freshers to experienced team members.
Yeah, yeah. So look, I think the little bit of challenge that we are most organizations are having is, you have a bunch of middle managers who spent a lot of time learning, growing up in different manufacturing or operating roles, and then suddenly you have youngsters who may be better qualified or better educated compared to the seniors, but they come in and want to do, let's say, more attractive type jobs, right? So they are saying, okay, I should be taking this role. And I think, we have to spend time with the youngsters for them to understand the importance of what the middle management does, right? And learn from them. So and at the same time, put the onus on the youngsters to teach the middle managers. So we have started something called reverse mentoring in a small pocket, to say, look, digitization is a big priority. The youngsters who are coming in are better at digitization and looking at digital. So why don't you help the middle managers learn digital better, right? And you from the middle managers learn the operations and the process and the way things work a little more. So we're trying to create a little bit of, you will win if you are together versus if you pit yourself against the middle management. It's tougher because I think the young people coming in, one, don't want to work in manufacturing. They want to go into services a lot more than manufacturing, because it's a better location, better cities, and better lifestyle than manufacturing. So it's a tough, especially in manufacturing context. Second, I think they don't have the patience, right? They want everything quickly. They've grown up in a mindset where they want instant gratification, which is not always the best thing to do. So I think it's a tough one. I don't think I have the right answer, but we're trying a few experiments, which hopefully something will begin to click.
All the best for that, Rohit. This is a question from Dinesh Wade. His question is how to transform traditional culture of laid down approach to lean thinking culture. Thank you, Dinesh.
So, I think, what you need to start doing is, one, there is a huge amount of non-value added work that we end up creating over time. So, we often complain and talk about the government saying there's so many new rules and laws keep coming and getting added. But by the way, if you look at most companies internally, we have the same thing. You'll keep creating new processes. Very rarely do we take out old processes, right? And as you become senior, you are away from it, so you don't even realize what old processes are still being followed on the ground because someone sometime started it off. So I think one is, can you periodically look at non-value added work and keep removing and pruning it so that people have a little more time. Um, Second is, once you have been able to do that, then I think you slowly start pulling out people from the team to create leaner teams on the ground and use those people to do improvement projects, right? Uh, and think of some bigger things that can be changed. With that, I think you reduce a little bit of over staffing in some teams, give a little more responsibility to the people who are actually doing things without having too many people who are just waiting around and not being fully utilized. And you use this bench for doing some bigger improvements. And I think with that, you can slowly start beginning to create a larger organization. And at the end of it, if you have some extra people, you figure out where else they can be deployed or what else you can grow. So I think if you're creating an organization which is growing, as you take people out, they can diversify into new areas and keep growing the organization, right? If it's a organization which is shrinking, then you have a problem at your hand.
So we still have 5 more questions. So hope that's okay with you, Rohit.
Sure, okay with me if people
Yeah.
are willing to stay back and listen.
And this is a question from Mr. Praveen Pandrati, and his question is, dear Rohit, do you think leaders really walk the talk of various leadership traits? Thank you, Praveen.
See, so I think the question, Praveen, I would say is, leaders may not walk the talk, right? But I think the question to you is, are you walking the talk? And are you changing or bringing the change that you want a leader to show? Because for everyone, there will always be a leader. Everyone will just, like I said, everyone puts the blame one level above, right, and work one level below, right? So that that's not how it works, right? Uh, Change starts from you. You may get a bad leader, bad luck. You will be a little tough time for you, but I think you can still change and you can operate differently. I've seen some fantastic leaders, who worked with some of the tough or maybe not great bosses, but still, made a difference. And difference each of us can make.
Absolutely. And this is a question from Mr. Gangadhara. His question is how to maintain a balance or break even line when implementing the empathy at work office. Sometimes I feel that too much of empathy may lead to little casual work, like casual work style, which may not suit to the current competitive era. Thank you, Gangadhara.
See, I think, don't confuse empathy with not being assertive,
Mm,
right? Or being soft. Empathy is not being soft. It is about being able to understand what someone is going through and support them in where they need help. But you can still be a tough boss. You can still be very assertive. That's perfectly fine. So I think you as a leader should remain assertive. You should be able to say firmly what your point of view is. At the same time, you have to be able to listen and look at it from it's not. So I think a good question that you asked. Don't confuse empathy as being soft. It
absolutely.
is not about being soft. It is about listening and doing the right thing. With our children, we are sometimes like that, right?
Yeah,
You are strict with them when you need to be strict with them, right? But you're not doing it because you want to punish them. You're punishing them because you want them to develop and learn something from it, right? That is being empathetic, right? You're listening to them, you're helping them develop, and you're doing it with their interest in mind.
absolutely. This is a second question from Mr. Bharat Verma, and his question is: as the technical members, we do get the best from the team members, and while returning them, we could not give them the best as we take courage to fight with the HR. But in the end, with a small appreciation and dinners, though after reaching with the month results, your view on this, please.
Sorry, I lost the question a little bit. There's two this thing. So the crux of the question, let me just quickly uh, there's some so look, tech, uh, I don't think it's a HR versus technical fight. Look, every function has its role, and I think uh, I always feel either you are trying to always put the blame on someone else, or you are trying to make a difference yourself. There'll always be something to blame if you want to put the blame on someone else, right? I think, look, if you're looking for happiness outside, you'll never get it. So I always feel if something is wrong, ignore it. Focus on what you can make do differently to make a difference, right? At least in your environment, make a change happen, and that's how change starts in organization.
Great. This is in fact, we have two questions from Mr. Kakarlapudi Himakar, and his question, his question is, "Hi, thanks for the wonderful session. My questions are: how to execute empathy in a large organization with thousands of employees, where hierarchy is a bit complex, and where early career roles will not have face-to-face conversation with top management in day-to-day life." That's the first question. Second question is, when there is a big target set, if that is not met, how do a chief empathy officer handle this from a boss and towards his subordinates? Thank you, Kakarlpudi.
So I think two things. One, look, yeah, you can't talk to everyone. So you have to be able to get your teams to talk to everyone, right? And hence, at least with the 4 or 5 people who are reporting to you, are you being empathetic? Are you opening the doors for them to come and share what's troubling them, or what's on their minds a lot more openly, right? And at least with that, you will start. Second is, at least, yes, your time, you may not have time, but do people feel they can reach out to you, right? And sometimes you have to say no. You may not have time. That's fine, but at least people feel across levels that they can reach out to you, irrespective of the hierarchy, right? Is important. So if you say if 10 people reach out to me and I have time only for two, if you pick only the top two senior guys, you're doing something wrong. But if you take two at random or two people who came first to you, that's I think important culture change you can set. So I think yeah, you can't listen to everyone, but you have to create an organization that listens, and you start sending the signals in that way. So I think that's on the question number one. Uh, I think second is on look, you have to have the to build your own confidence to take the fall for a couple of raw things gone wrong, right? It will go wrong. Everything cannot be right. You think if you blame it on someone else or push the team something beyond a certain point, things won't go wrong. Things will still go wrong. So learn how to handle failures and bounce back from them. Learn from it so that it doesn't happen again.
And this is the last question for today evening,
Sure.
with your permission, Rohit. This is
Yeah.
from Mr. Saeed Ahmad. His question is it healthy to change CEO in a short term, sometimes in less than 1 year? And during that 1 year, make a huge push to modify an organization design and make
I
complex.
don't. I don't think so. I think to me, when I took on my first CEO role, I thought in 3 years I'll be able to bring a change. But I think it took a good 4 or 5 years for me to start seeing the change happen. So I think a CEO role typically should be 3 to 5 years. That's minimum horizon you need to be able to bring cultural change in an organization and strategic change in an organization. Anything will belong, less than that, you're just playing around with the organization and dynamics, in my view.
Thank you. I think we have definitely overshot the time by almost
Sure.
50 minutes now. But thank you so much, Rohit, for a wonderful and engaging session. Like we discussed in the beginning, I think that I'm sure, I think that this Q&A session has given a lot of, in very insightful. I think that has come definitely from your wonderful experience of having. At the shop level as well as the the corner suit. I mean, that's a great combination. But absolutely interesting, insights. I'm sure all the participants have had that, and also, I think you can see the flurry of questions that we're getting from all the participants. That's what
Sure.
it.
Sure.
Thank you so
Mm.
much from all of us once again, and sorry to bother you in the Saturday evening.
No,
And look forward
no,
to hosting
pleasure.
you once again.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. Okay, take care. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Thanks.